Hello, adventurer. It's good to see you. You have made it to the morning grind.
Welcome, welcome.
It's the live stream at the beginning of the Geekverse, where we talk about all types of topics in geekdom, gaming, and fantasy, with an emphasis on being constructive and creating the things that we want to exist in the world.
It's all on the grind, Sizemore. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
That's exactly right. There are a lot of adventures to be had today. Dungeons to explore and monsters to slay, and who knows what a random encounter might send our way. That's why we have to prepare, so settle in now for the morning grind with your favorite beverage in hand.
Tea? Or maybe something a little stronger. I've got a few bottles of the old Wynyard left.
Whatever you want. Pull up a chair.
Dude.
If you're feeling fancy, how about a cappuccino? Or a frappuccino? Or how about an espresso?
Just tea, thank you.
Sounds good to me, Gandalf. Whatever you want. I'm just glad you're here.
Everyone is welcome. You can just watch if you want. You don't have to worship anything you don't want to worship.
Thank you, Mike. But be forewarned.
Sometimes we get really strange characters around here.
Wait, what's that you say? Why can't you come and be a part of the stream?
My wife would disown me.
Oh no, I bet she'll be fine with it. Come on in.
Am I scared for my safety? No.
What are we supposed to do?
Everybody do the secret handshake.
Secret cultist handshake.
Oh, now do wizards who love each other.
This, my friend, is a science.
I still don't have gifts, but it's fine.
It's all on the grind, son. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
Dude, this would be a sick place to bring the band.
Indeed it would be, Dave. It really would. I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome, glad to have you here. Oh look, here's someone new.
Is this the cultist meetup?
Yes it is.
Come to hang out? Please accept me. I have nothing else.
Okay, we accept you. Everyone's welcome here.
Brought some snacks.
Well, that makes things even better.
You want some coffee?
I don't drink coffee.
You sure? It's cultist coffee.
What makes it cultist coffee?
I'm a cultist and I'm drinking it.
Oh. Then I'll have some.
What exactly is going on here?
I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. It's so great to have you. Oh, and look, here comes another stranger.
Can we help you?
Yes, fellow cultists. I could really use some food.
Oh yeah? Welcome. We have donuts.
Oh, it's me. I'm glad I'm here. I'm sure you have a few questions for me, though.
What's your name? Who do you work for? What god do you worship?
Great questions, Rob.
I'm Steve King, and I worship Nyarlathotep.
No, not really. I'm just Heath, and I won't be worshiping anything this morning. But I will be your host. Welcome to the office. We're going to have a great time. I've got my coffee ready, because now it's time for the morning grind.
If you could become a fish, that would be amazing. Then I could command you with my mental fish powers.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning and happy Thanksgiving. I'm so happy that you're here. I'm glad that we have time to hang out. Of course, I hope everybody is going to have a fantastic Thanksgiving, going and seeing people in person in real life. But I said, hey, I'm going to be here. I'm sort of committed to 30 days of live streaming. So, but, as a test here. So, we're actually, this is day 26 and it's Thanksgiving. So I was like, I got to do it anyway. I'm going to be here. And actually, I'm going to have to get out of here at 10:30 in just about an hour because I got a 2-hour drive to get to Thanksgiving. So I'm doing the live stream and then go right out here and I'm going to walk out of the door and go to Thanksgiving. And I hope you will too. Everybody's here. Look, Theo, happy Thanksgiving. Matt, happy Thanksgiving. Bill, Inner Light is here, and so is Stray. Welcome, and happy Thanksgiving. So I've got my coffee ready. So we are going to take a breath and sip and be thankful Thankful for everything we've got. And sip. Stray, thank you. Stray says, don't forget the pellet guns. They are already loaded in the car. That was one of my big rocks yesterday. In the truck, I've got the pellet guns. I was checking to be sure I got plenty of CO2. I've got the pellets. I've got the targets. I've got everything necessary for a great Thanksgiving afternoon. I like to be the uncle who brings the pellet guns to family gatherings. When I was younger, I had an uncle who would bring pellet guns, like a rifle and a pistol and things like that. We'd get together at our lake house, and then that was one of the activities is we got to shoot those and targets. And so I decided that I want to incorporate that into my life as an adult. So now I'm the one bringing the pellet guns. And so they are all ready to go, ready for nieces and nephews to have fun with. Hello, Rhino. Happy Turkey Day. Happy Turkey Day. Happy Thanksgiving. So we're going to be talking briefly about magic systems. Well, talking about magic systems, and then specifically in the context of GURPS Thaumatology. And that's because I've seen in some chats and some chat messages on some other videos about GURPS and like the magic systems and the standalone magic system in GURPS. But there can be alternates, or excuse me, the default sort of magic system in GURPS, but there can be alternates. This book has a lot of great. Do I have the physical copy over here? Oh, yeah, I should be holding it up. This book has some fantastic ideas for different kinds of magic systems and the way they might be implemented. And yeah, I agree that magic systems can be really hard to do. They can be hard to do in books. They can be hard to do in movies, TV, whatever. They can also be difficult to implement in RPGs. So we're going to take a look at that and look at why. So that is what we're going to be looking at right here. Let's go to the morning messages. We'll get to this right after the morning messages. Friday night at 7:30 p.m. Central Time, new episodes of The Cultists Season 2 are premiering. It's our comedy web show about modern-day Lovecraftian cultists just trying to worship Cthulhu in a world full of people who don't understand.
I attack with darkness.
40-10 psychic damage.
Whoa. My parents are out of the house today. I invited the guys over for a little D&D.
So do I get to cast spells?
Yes, you're a wizard.
I am?
That's my spot!
Oh, yeah? Well, why don't you come over here and do something about it?
So I'm gonna take Steve out.
How are you gonna do that?
I'm gonna cast Power Word Kill.
Kill, kill, kill!
What happened?
First they start playing Monopoly, and then they move on to Dungeons and Dragons. The next thing you know, they're worshiping demons and drowning themselves in lakes.
Can't even cast a practice spell right.
I think you're just not high enough level to cast Power Word Kill.
I will not stop until Steve is destroyed. Edith, target, conditioner, saving throw.
There's a live after party after every show with me, Heath. I'm the creator, co-writer, and producer of the show. I also play Steve, and other members of the cast and crew. Catch those live or on replay. If you need to catch up on The Cultist show, both Season 1 and Season 2 are on my YouTube channel. Just go to the playlist. Each episode is about 5 to 7 minutes long. We've also developed a social deduction and miniature game based on The Cultist that we want to launch on GameFound. Check this out. Ready for a Cthulhu Cultist party game of spellcasting and betrayal? Welcome to Ritual.
This is just our gaming group.
Indeed, but your gaming group is all you need to delve into the madness-inducing rituals necessary to summon Cthulhu. Click the link below to visit the GameFound page, follow the project, and learn more.
Dude, this is hardcore.
Ritual is a game of incantation, social deduction, and dreadful fun. To win, your band of loyal cultists must successfully complete 5 magical rituals. But watch out. Your cult has been secretly infiltrated by the sinister agents of the Yellow King.
You think the cult of the Yellow King is here?
If they can foul up 3 of your rights, then they win.
You've not been further compromised by the Yellow King, have you?
Check out the GameFound page for more about the game and for a brief rundown on how to play. GameFound is a great new platform for crowdfunding board games, and we are proud to make it Ritual's home base. When you follow the game on GameFound, you can get updates about the game's development before the project goes live. And you'll get a free Rob, High Priest of Dagon miniature in battle pose if you decide to back the game when the campaign goes live. There is even an opportunity to get an advanced copy of the rules and participate in the playtest for rules review. We'd like everyone who's a fan of the Cultists to be involved.
Any cult leader would be proud to have you as their disciple.
So if you're a fan of Elder Gods and crazy fun, come and join us for Ritual. Click the link below to follow the game on GameFound today. You can get all of the links you need in the chat or in the description below. The Morning Grind is brought to you by Ravenkeep. That's the company that I set up to publish the things that we are making here on the show. Check out ravenkeep.net. You'll find merchandise from the cultists, such as mugs and coffee, as well as board games, the Goodnight Sword ebook, and the Terra Tiles pre-order. Terra Tiles are the terrain system that my brother and I developed that I'm currently re-releasing. Terra Tiles are the easiest way to get great-looking terrain on your table. They are bright and colorful and ready to play right out of the box. There's nothing to print, paint, or assemble, and Terra Tiles are large, thick, and durable, being 9 inches from point to point. That's large enough to make setting them up quick and easy, while also being the perfect size to create really varied and organic-looking terrain setups for your table. This reprint is being produced in very limited numbers, so if you want one, you need to put in a pre-order so a box will get your name put on it. The Morning Grind is also brought to you by, well, no one else right now, but wouldn't it be cool if in the future there was somebody else who wanted to sponsor the show and keep us streaming? I think it would be pretty cool. We'll just see how it goes. Stay tuned and watch this space, I suppose. But alright, that's what you need to know right now. Let's get into it. All right. I had some thoughts, and I have lost them. Something about tomorrow night, Friday night, got another cultist episode. Only 3 left. I got to organize the after party, get people here. We may have some additional members of the cast on the after party tomorrow night. I'm hoping so. So we've got some additional interest. So hopefully I'll see you there. Getting close to the end of it. End of season 2. Exciting. All right. So let's talk about... I need another breath. All right. Let's talk about magic systems in general. And I was trying to understand when people ask, or I was trying to think about, why are they so difficult? Why are they hard to do? If people are saying it's difficult to do in RPGs or whatever, and I was trying to think, well, why is that? And it occurred to me when I was thinking about the way I would do ability scores. What are ability scores for? This is kind of a chain of thinking, but my thought about ability scores in an RPG, and especially as if I were writing one, if I were going to write one, then your core ability scores would be the primary ways that you use to interact with the world. If it doesn't cause interaction with the world, then I would move it out of an ability score to something else. And, classically, there's the classic Dungeons and Dragons ability scores, right? That have gotten used in many, many other games because of the open gaming license and all of that. And you have those that get applied to things that they probably shouldn't be applied to. It's kind of the default thing. Everybody knows what they are. But we've noticed that not all of them are equally useful, right? Some of those core stats in Dungeons and Dragons get used more than others. Dexterity is very useful. Strength, but there are some things you don't make checks for very often, like Constitution, Charisma, sometimes not used all that much. There are some that are more valuable than others. So, and that I think that's because the ones that actually help us take action in the world are the ones that get used more. So how can you influence the world? Well, one great way that we influence the world is using our bodies in some way, which is often lumped into dexterity, right? So that's why dexterity checks are made quite a bit. Another way is through strength, right? Or through our intelligence, different ways that we can influence the world. Something like our health kind of prevents the world from influencing us. I'm generalizing here, but if you're trying to, that's why I think of like health as more like a saving throw, right? That something is trying to affect your health, and so you make a health saving throw. So I'm not using my health to affect the world. I'm using the health to stop the world from affecting me. So I think those are 2 important parts of the character. So something like, and we even looked at like GURPS, most things are based on dexterity or based on intelligence, right? And so you're constantly making those kinds of checks. Sometimes strength checks, but like in the modern world, how often do we try to influence the world with our strength? Not in a big way. I mean, sometimes I'm not particularly strong. Probably, I don't know, average or less than average. Probably, I've been doing a lot of being sedentary right here at the computer for the last 6 months. But, I've still managed to get by. I don't really have to make all that many strength checks. What does this have to do with magic? Well, if we're talking about, when I was thinking about, now here are the core stats that would be checks that are used to influence the world. We can run narrative style games fairly easily because all of us have personal experience because we have bodies and we're here in the real world with doing things with our strength, doing things with our intelligence, doing things with our body, and then perhaps doing something socially, right? Maybe that's kind of like charisma or some type of social ability, right? So we're all familiar with that. And we're able to say, what are kinds of things are easy or hard if you were trying to do something with your strength? Well, lift coffee mug, that's trivial with strength, so no check required. Lift portcullis, that's hard. That's very hard, right? If you're trying to rank these things. But it occurred to me that if you're thinking about core abilities as the way we influence the world, in some settings, in some universes, we have another way to influence the world, and that is through magic. Psionics could be another one. I would probably put that as another category because some settings separate those things, others don't. If you could also put in like superpowers or something like that if you're doing comic book superhero games. But so I think that potentially, as I'm thinking about an RPG, magic should be a core ability. If it's a way that players can influence the world, then that should be a core ability because I'm going to do something. I'm going to influence the world through my magic. The problem is we don't have any understanding about what kind of tasks are easy or what kind of tasks are hard because we don't have magic in the real world. We don't have magic powers. So we have to either, we have to have a lot more guidance. We have to have a lot more guidance in the rule book about what exactly can be done with magic and what can't be done with magic, because we just sort of instinctively know what can be done with magic, your strength or your dexterity and what can't. We have no idea what can be done with magic and what can't. And we have no idea what tasks are easy to accomplish with magic and what are hard to accomplish with magic. And so I think that's why, the spell section of the Dungeons and Dragons PHB is, a no small part. It's a huge chunk of the book, because we've got to spell out everything. And once you spell it out, then it's like, well, that's great for the way this works or those particular worlds. But if I'm trying to replicate this other world or this other universe or this other property or IP, you got to completely respecify all of it, right? So, GURPS has gone to a tremendous amount of effort as well to come up with a skill-based magic system. Some people were saying they don't like it. I think it's a fine default magic system that's perfectly usable, especially if you've got wizards who are like active wizards with the spell casting like exists in a Dungeons and Dragons kind of environment. But that doesn't work for everything, and there might be other ways to do magic. Let me just look at the chat here. So that was my thinking about why doing magic is difficult. My general ideas there. So Innerlight says, one of the things about magic is that you are technically introducing ways the player break the rules or the way the world works, but still within the rules. Yeah, you could. I cut myself this morning. But yeah, you could. It's breaking the rules. Is it breaking the rules? It's violating. I mean, I can see it explained that way, but it's violating something that does not normally happen in the rules. Or excuse me, in the real world. And we've got to come up with some way to adjudicate that and account for that. Ability scores. That's one of the reasons I only have 4 ability scores in the game I'm working on. Body, mind, agility, and fate. Magical ability as well as luck. And actually, that kind of setup with the more limited ability scores, I'm becoming an increasingly large fan of in general. Yeah, real world, some doors are very heavy, right? But we all have some common understanding of that. So Rhino says, you also got some game specifics to the genre. I.e. Cyberpunk has tech as a basic skill for how well you can use technology, the magic of the setting. Oh, yeah, right. So this is in Cyberpunk, we have another way to alter the world, right? So that needs to be accounted for. And then Call of Cthulhu uses POW, POW as basic spell casting ability. Most magic decreases this over time, but they can make you roll for it with a core stat. I've just basically investigated Call of Cthulhu. In fact, I should investigate that one again, as I've never actually gotten to play it. But we should read through Call of Cthulhu here on Morning Grind. So, with that thinking in mind, let's go over here and bring up Thaumatology. If you haven't seen this book, who was saying, I believe it in the chat earlier, Theo was saying that this book is not light reading. But, many of the GURPS books are not, but they are great books. I think this is a great book. And I've been wanting to get back to it and looking over it because of the ideas that are contained within it. And if you haven't seen this book and you're trying to build out magic systems or think about how they work, of course, GURPS is the generic universal role-playing games. There might be ideas in here for whatever role-playing game that you are using. Cover, back cover, really like that. So lots of stuff in here. World-shaking freeform magic. So let's look at the contents. Like I said, if you're not familiar with this book, what is magic is a big topic here. The idea of magic, conceptualizations of magic, sources of magic, laws of magic, magic workers, minor spell variants. So it did say on the back there that this contains tweaks for the magic system that's presented in the magic book and the core GURPS book, because it's a completely built out magic system, but it may not be right for every world. So how do we modify that? But if you want to modify that one, you could modify it a little bit for your world. Maybe then it fits. Ethics and spells, energy sources, mana. Okay, then major variations to magic. Clerical spell magic. Should we separate, like Dungeons and Dragons does, divine magic and the magic of clerics from the type of magic that wizards and other mages use? So clerical spell magic, we can talk about that. Ritual magic, threshold limited magic, mandatory and significant modifiers, assisting spirits, and then another big category, material magic, inherent magic, alchemy. See, I said that I really like alchemy just in general. I'm a fan of alchemy, but I haven't seen it implemented in a great way in a game. Now, we can take a look at exactly the implementation of GURPS here. And I think even if you have a great implementation of the actual alchemical practices, which GURPS is providing here. I mean, there's a lot of great information about alchemy. When I'm talking about integrating alchemy well into the game, what I'm mainly talking about is what happens with what happens during the game as an alchemist. Because being an alchemist seems to be spending a lot of time in your laboratory making potions, which is not adventuring. And we talked about how even something like Fate will say, proactive characters who go out on adventures. I think it's difficult because the alchemist is not, or when doing alchemy, is not particularly adventurous. I would love to come up with a good way to do it. And I also, some people will do alchemy and the alchemist ends up being a grenadier. And I think that's not good. Basically the alchemist is some guy who's got like bombs that's throwing grenades during combat that the alchemist has created, and that's not my conceptualization of alchemy. I mean, it does give the alchemist something to do out in the world, but enchanting items, how we do that, magic items as advantages, item drawbacks, paths and books. I love this section of this book. Essential magic principles, path book advantages. This is a different type of magic system, a way that you can have magical powers. And actually, I think that some of the stories, the worlds that I write, I'm creating, the way the magic works in the stories is more like paths and books as it's explained here. So I think there's actually a lot of stuff I can pull from that. Flexible magic, symbol magic variations, syntactic magic, verbs and nouns. This is trying to be free form, right? And of course, that's, I suppose, in terms of magic systems, that's the holy grail for many people of magic systems, being able to have a free form magic system that the wizard is able to do what they want to do or attempt to do what they want to do with magic without having to, well, in game design, specify exactly what goes on with 500 different magical effects, like like the PHB in Dungeons and Dragons does, or even the GURPS spell lists in its general system. You don't have to. It would be nice if you didn't have to go through that during game design, and then it would also be nice to, if you're playing a mage or a wizard or whatever it is, that you don't have to uh, flip through all of that and go, okay, now what exactly can I do with magic? Flip through, find something, read the spell description. Is that what I want? No, can I do this? Hey, I really want to do this. Well, is there a spell for that? I don't know. Let me see. It sure would be nice if, especially if you're in a more narrative environment, to be able to call out what you were trying to do and then have some way to adjudicate that at the table. But like I said, that's the reason that's difficult sort of to adjudicate on the fly is because we don't have an intuitive understanding of what is easy or hard, or how with magic to accomplish with magic, or even how magic can be used. You got to get into the setting, and you really got to know that. If you don't have a setting, if you're just if you're building the setting on the fly, which we talked about like yesterday, and I think like something like Fate is really good at, you might be starting with no setting, have no idea how magic works. Syntactic magic. Does anybody have experience with that? Has anyone ever played that? Verbs and nouns used. Now, I know there are other games that also try that type of magic system. Is that working well for anybody out there? If so, let me know. Magic as power. Mortals with supernatural servants, spirit vessels, games of high enchantment, magical campaigns, subtle and quick to anger. Themes and variations, worked examples, and then a bunch of stuff in the appendix. So once again, I think this is a book that we're going to be coming back to time and time again. This is kind of our introduction to it when we're thinking about this, because there is so much stuff in this book. It's a really good one. Stray says, I have a love-hate relationship with magic in games. I loved being a caster in Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind. But being a DM, I saw what was going on. But being a DM, I saw what I was doing to the game design. Stray says, my alchemist is a cook by trade. Same thing when you think about it. Very similar. Notes on alchemy. I prefer someone making potions instead of bombs. Healing potions probably being the most popular, but it does require materials. Right, yeah. Brewing the health potions or the potions of strength, or whatever is setting specific that the alchemist would be brewing, I would prefer that as well. That would be the kind of thing, and doing some transmutation, lead to gold, that kind of thing. But that's still a lot off camera. That's a lot of the downtime. That's not the active adventuring. It's kind of the stuff that's done in downtime, and you don't want to be running a character who shines most during the downtime. Like, that's lame. Now, it does require materials, and one way you can do that is, well, you got to go on an adventure. What gets the alchemist out of the laboratory? Well, it's going on an adventure, because you need some kind of very special magical item or component in order to create some elixir or something like that. But then again, that's adventuring. That's not being an alchemist. That's not doing your alchemy. So, should you be, are you a fighter then? You're basically playing a fighter or something else? Maybe you are a wizard actually during most of the actual gameplay and not in the downtime. Verbs and nouns, Innerlight says, it's used in errant RPG, but I'm not a fan of it. It still feels too alien to me. Okay, so let's take a look. We'll take a look at verbs and nouns maybe today, maybe later. So let's just start going through it, because I suppose that's the best way to, we'll just see how far we get, hit the topics that we want to get as we're going through it, and then we can return to the book, like I said, in future live streams, to pull out what we need. So the idea of magic. So this is what we've been talking about in the early part of this live stream. So conceptualizations of magic. Magic is a cookbook. Magic might consist of a fixed list of well-defined spells. That's, the D&D way or the core GURPS way. Magic is engineering. Magic is art. Magic as negotiation. In some beliefs, magic requires the involvement of supernatural beings, usually intangible spirits. The magician's role is that of a negotiator who does not know how to make contact, but who not only knows how to make contact, but who can persuade, cajole, bribe, or coerce these entities into doing his bidding or stop what they're doing. Magic is divine favor. That's the D&D cleric kind of thing. Magic is reality shaping. Laws of nature, ambient energy. Lots of things to think about when creating. Oh, ley lines. Those are fun. Midgard has the ley lines in there. And I think that's the geomancy. I think when I was playing the wizard in Midgard, I had whatever I needed to, whatever feat or whatever I needed to commune with the ley lines for like geomancy travel. That was pretty cool. Ethical magic, the laws of magic. So the law of sympathy. I remember talking about this in anthropology class, that like affects like. That is, things that look or act alike are alike and can affect each other magically. For example, a doll resembling a person can be used to cast spells on him. This principle may be seen at work in astrological correspondences. Gold aids solar magic because gold is the color of the sun. Academic magicians might say that both gold and the sun comprise very similar proportions of the same decanic energies. Sympathy's most common uses are bluntly practical. A shaman's clutches eagle feathers as his spirit flies. I use that kind of thing in some stories, like the voodoo doll idea. Yep. So, magic workers. Bloodlines, education. Running an adventure in Hogwarts. We have a little bit of a disagreement on the adventuring here and alchemy. Alchemy and adventuring, I disagree a bit, but it depends on whether or not you have alchemical desks like in HeroQuest available in adventuring environments. Okay, and then gold is a major conductor and one of the few things we have to protect against solar radiation. Another association between gold and the sun, right? Okay, so let's get into some of the stuff here. So minor magical variants. And see, okay, GURPS uses magery in order to cast spells. And this is kind of like having it as an ability. Because I was talking about magic as a way that affects the world. Well, if we've got... How do you know whether somebody can affect the world using magic? Well, in GURPS, that's done by purchasing magery. So if you don't have it, and talking generally here, if you don't have that, then your character is not a magic user and can't access magic and doesn't have magic available to affect the world. But so if you've got it, then you do. And that's where I was kind of thinking that, well, now not everybody would have the magic ability, or maybe everyone should, and maybe it's just 0. Like, what's my ability to do something with magic? Well, I got a 0 in that stat. That means I don't have access to that. And that also would allow you to have, if you had a good magic system where you were a bit more free form with it and you had different abilities with magic, it's almost like, well, the Force. See, the Force would be another one. Like in Star Wars, another way to affect the world is through the Force. So in my opinion, the Force would be a core attribute, or could be, like the way that I'm thinking about this, would be a core attribute, because some characters have access to a way of influencing the world the other characters don't. So Force, in that case, would be a core attribute. And then you have different levels of Force sensitivity and your ability to use the Force, right? So you could do the same thing for magery. It's easier or more difficult for certain people to affect the world using magic, just like higher dexterity or strength scores or whatever make it easier for some characters to affect the world with their strength or weakness through their dexterity or whatever. So I'm sure we'll talk about wizards and armor here. So special limitations on magery. So if you were able to affect the world with magic, and of course GURPS excels at limitations and adjusting different powers through things like limitations. So you could adopt that idea as well. For instance, saying, okay, everybody's got, I mean, you might have varying degrees of magical power, but your magical power can only be used, like for instance, through ceremonial magery. You must cast all spells using ceremonial magic, as described on the basic set, page 238. This is hopelessly restrictive for adventuring battle wizards, but quite appropriate for enchanters who never leave home, or at least not without their personal magical armory. Talented part-timers who use mundane skills when adventuring, but cast the odd knowledge or healing spell when time permits, and so on. If all your magery has this limitation, then you can only sense magic items by performing a minor ceremony, taking at least 10 seconds before touching them. In a mostly high mana campaign setting, you'll be less restricted. Now, the GURPS system uses mana basically to power magic. And so whether or not you are in a high mana or a low mana environment also adjusts how well you can cast spells, or whether or not spells work at all. So there are a lot of dials here, especially within GURPS, but that means there are a lot of dials just in fantasy world building and magic in general as well. But so there are a lot of dials that you can possibly work with. In a mostly high mana setting, you'll be less restricted. You'll often be able to cast quick spells just without your magery bonus. If the world only has a few small high mana locations, ceremonial mages may regard them as places to have fun and cut loose. This is often combined with the solitary ceremonial enchantment for a net negative 30. I think this one is neat. The cyclical, either day aspected or night aspected. And see, I think this is where the term, this is aspected magic. For some reason, day aspected and night aspected magic is something that is stuck in my brain. And so when people talk about aspects, like in Fate originally, for some reason, it had this magical association with me. The day aspected and the night aspected magic. Inner Light says midichlorian count 0. Yeah, oh, I don't I don't want to bring up midichlorians. But right, yeah. Force sensitivity, I would put. But you could also, that midichlorian level, and then put that as your ability to influence the world through the Force. The Adventurer Conqueror King system has a fairly interesting but still familiar for D&D players magic system. I don't know that one either. I do not know that one. But something like a cyclical magery I see in my stories. So you can only use it during the day, or only use it during the night, or you're more powerful during the day, or you're more powerful during the night. When is it that you recharge? Astrological ill-omened dates, such as Friday the 13th. The lunar magery, I think that's a big one. The moon magic, especially in for me and my world building, mages that cease to work around the time the new moon. If you have lunar magery as a limitation, that magery that ceases to work around the time of the new moon or the full moon, say for 3 days and nights, or about 10% of the lunar calendar month, is negative 5% limitation. And these negative percentages, if you're not familiar with GURPS, has to do with reducing the point value of the advantage. So if you want to be magical, I forget exactly what it is, how much magery costs. And then you've just got magery. You've got level 1 magery, or level 2 magery, or level 3 magery, or whatever it is. But if you don't want to pay that much, you can say, well, I'm going to take a limitation on when I can cast spells, such as, well, I can't cast spells on the new moon or the full moon. So that makes it my magery cost 5% less. So that's not a big disadvantage. It could be a big disadvantage. But also, here's one of the points about my point about the problem with trying to balance character creation using game points. Because obviously I've taken a deep dive into GURPS, especially when I was trying to create a Middle-earth setting out of GURPS. You can go crazy with it. But is a negative 5% limitation, and getting you 5% of your points back, actually fairly priced? Is that correctly priced? because you're trying to get an advantage, a lower cost magery up front during character design, so you can get something else. You can get some other higher skill or something like that, a skill at a level higher or something with those points. And it's saying it's a negative 5% limitation. Well, what's going on in the campaign? I have no idea what's going on in the campaign. So it's very difficult to know whether or not it's fairly priced, because if it is a campaign, you could completely play a campaign or, a long game that was completely set around the full moon or the new moon or something like that, especially if it's a one shot or something like that. The amount of time also that goes on in the game world doesn't have to be the amount of time that goes on, at the gaming table. You could play a campaign, or a game over many days or weeks or months and have it all take place within a day or 2 days or 3 days inside the game world. Could do that. And if it happens to be all during the new moon, then, and you said I don't work during, my magic doesn't work during the new moon, then you might as well not have magic, right? And you paid all the magic stuff, paid all the points for magic and not even gotten to use it. So that could be a huge disadvantage. Only if it works when the moon is waxing or waning half the time. That's negative 40%. Magery that's only available for 2 or 3 days per lunar month has negative 80%. I'm sure this would probably also drive game masters crazy if you're doing this, because now the game master has to keep track of when the moon is waxing or waning on any particular day of the campaign universe. That's the classic thing that, how to aggravate your game master when you're the one on watch, when you're pulling watch, when you're adventuring and have set up camp, asking the game master things like, what does the moon look like? What phase of the moon are we in? I'm looking up the moon. Well, this would even be worse than that, right? But anyway, that's why I've actually tried to move away, or have been moving away, with point-based systems like this. They can be a lot of work, and at the end, you can't even guarantee that you're going to use your advantages, or that your disadvantages are actually going to be disadvantageous. I prefer the system, and my preference is coming now, like Fate or in the Codex system, where if you've got an advantage, if something comes up, you get the advantage right then, and if a disadvantage comes up, then you get the benefit of that, or you get your payback for that right there. If the disadvantage never comes up, then, well, it just never came up. But when it does come up, you get your reward in terms of a fate point or whatever it was that's the equivalent in the Codex system right then, rather than trying to front load the reward in character creation. I think it's a more elegant way to do it. Rhino says, spell casting time is a fun dial to play. Oh, spell casting time is a fun dial to play with in a game. Conditions for casting spells is also fun. Cthulhu can only be summoned when the stars are right. Yeah, that's a major limitation on that particular spell, particularly famous limitation. Cthulhu can only be summoned when the stars are right. In some games, that might be a specific spell that needs to be cast. But yeah, casting time, I think so too. I think I talked about in some other video that GURPS was, I think it was when we were looking at Against the Dark Master, MERP, that I am potentially comfortable with spells, even in combat, taking more than one round. So you could just say that spells, the casting time is so long, you're not going to do it in battle. That was basically the ceremonial side of magic, right? But I'm still okay with players needing to concentrate more than one round, as long as it still makes sense and is gameable, because the Dungeons and Dragons spells are basically one round, right? I don't think there are any spells, I'm pretty sure, that require more than one round to cast. I mean, you can do ritual casting and things like that and take more time on it, but there's not like casting time on the spell description that says this one takes 3 rounds. Some of them can be cast as a bonus action, right? So I guess there's 2 different speeds there: a bonus action and a standard action. But you never have to concentrate over several rounds in order to do it. And I'm okay with that, as long as the mage still seems useful, because that kind of skips their turn. I'm still concentrating on my spell. Inner Light says, chances 5% means that it probably comes into effect. 1 in 20 sessions or so. So every once in a while, I'm sure the GM would introduce. 80% is 16 of 20. Yeah. And that's great for that's a great way to think about it, I think, for long running campaigns. If you're going to be sitting there, if you know you're committing to a 20 session campaign and you've got a negative 5% limitation on your majory, then you would expect that, well, one of those sessions, you could work it like this. One of those sessions, I'm going to be without my majory. That's my cost. On the other hand, yeah, if you are going to be without your majory 80% of the time, that means 16 of only during 4 of those games am I going to have it. Now, that works as long as you're committing to a multi-game session, right? Otherwise, it's going to have to be adjudicated inside the game. Like, I'm going to sit down here for 3 hours. This is, it's too much. It's too much. I'm going to sit here for 3 hours, and during 5% of our 3-hour session, I'm not going to have access to my magic. Or I'm going to sit here for 3 hours, and only during 20% of it I will. Balancing that seems hard, and especially that in my experience, most games don't go that long. Somebody was talking about in the chat that they were in a 20-year game. What did it say? 20-year? I think they did. So I mean, there are people who have been playing that long and are able to do that, and that's fantastic. I would love to be able to be in a major game. But one of the things I was also saying is that there are a lot of different characters I want to play. There are a lot of different worlds I want to play in, and they can't all be, level 1 to level 20, 3-year campaigns. So how do you adjudicate that? I don't know. Inner Light says, I mean, the GM would introduce a situation that limits magical use. Yeah. Stray says, in my game, if someone uses lightning during a thunderstorm, it does more damage. Using weather is always fun to affect magic with. That's cool. That's cool. I remember the Fathomers in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Those were the weather mages, right? I think we should take a look at that. I believe that was in the Of Ships and the Sea supplement, and that was a great supplement. I want to look at that one. Sometime we're going to look at the Ships in the Sea. Great book, and had the Fathomer in it. So yeah, weather is cool. Second edition had some spells that took a turn 10 rounds to cast. Summoning spells, I think, were longer. Oh yeah, so a turn being 10 rounds. Probably so, yeah. Levitation in a high wind. Nice, nice. Rhino says, ETU had ritual spells take hours or days, but you can do things like summon a hurricane or conjure a pillar of flame to consume a skyscraper. Right. That's more than you'd be doing in combat, probably, in many worlds and most magic systems. But that's the payoff, right? That the caster still feels like they're having a major effect on the game world, even if they have to take a long time, because they're getting this major effect. Easily resisted magic. Your spells are for some reason easier to resist than others. Enchantment only. I can see that one being used a lot. Because if you're going to be an enchanter and you want to do things off screen and create magic items, I put out on the GURPS board a while back because I was looking for ways to have magic as craftsmanship. And we're going to have to look at that sometime, because I didn't find a system that had magic as craftsmanship like I thought would be out there, because I use that in my game worlds quite a bit and in my stories. And I thought that kind of thing would be out there a lot, because that's Middle Earth magic. So much of Middle Earth's magic is like that it's not creating the wondrous sword or creating the ring of power or any of the rings of power, or creating, forging a special sword or creating the elven rope or something like that. To me, that wasn't so much magic, but high levels of craftsmanship. If you are an exceptionally skilled craftsman, then the items that you produce have magical effects. I think that's an important whole topic, because I've got notes on where that appears in a bunch of different systems and how to make that best, how to best do that. So extravagant rituals. One of the things that I do like about GURPS, the GURPS casting, sort of in its standard system. Dungeons and Dragons has, does this require vocal components? Does this require somatic components, or does it require material components? And that's just standard and set. And that could be the way magic works, of course, in any world. That is just making up fantasy worlds. That could be the way magic works. But I like in GURPS that you have skill with an individual. In the standard system, you have skill with an individual spell. And then the higher the skill level you get in sort of the default system, the less it requires of you as far as rituals and stuff in order to be able to cast. So I think that's another interesting dial, that if you might be able to cast a spell at a really low skill level, and in order to cast that spell, you've really got to, like, I think the example is you got to be dancing. Like your movements have got to be big, whatever it's taking to make the magical effect. You're going to have to sing. You're going to have to be loud. You're going to have to really move around. But then as you become more and more skilled, you may be able to produce the same magical effect using much more subtle movements, or no words at all, or a simple word or something like that. Now you got to keep track of how skilled you are with every spell in that regard. You could also maybe put that just on magery. What's your level, instead of trying to track that by spell. You could just say, how good a wizard am I? If the less skilled I am, the more I actually have to do. As I get increasingly skilled, I'm able to produce these effects in more subtle ways. That would be one that would go. So I thought about that because this is extravagant rituals. You've really got to do something extravagant and noticeable. The disadvantage there would be noticeable. Visible magical gifts, radically unstable, other appropriate limitations. See, aspected magery. There's that word aspect. Aspected magery. I guess that's why I associate aspects with magic when I started reading Fate. Let's see. Anybody check the chat? Nope. Your magic could be unreliable. It takes recharge. All these great ideas. What is this? Oh, let's look at this. So before we go, this would probably give us just to the end of the live stream here, because this is Thanksgiving, so going to have to get out of here and go to Thanksgiving lunch. The unarmored wizard. What a classic trope, right? The common image in fantasy is the group of metal-armored, sword-wielding warriors accompanied by a wizard who wears a lightweight robe and carries a flimsy dagger. I'm thinking Hero Quest here. Although the warrior in that, I guess is not metal-clad. But same, very classic. This could merely be a literary convention, partly excused by the suggestion that the wizard has been too busy studying magic to learn to fight. In game terms, spending many points on magical abilities leaves him unable to afford much strength, so he's likely to avoid heavy equipment that would slow him down. The problem may instead be social. An armor-clad wizard might be seen as admitting that he isn't as good enough at magic to defend himself and be mocked by other wizards. There might be other justifications reflecting optional rules. Rituals and encumbrance. The weight and bulk of equipment might make the physical process of spellcasting more difficult. If so, apply the caster's current encumbrance level as a penalty to spellcasting rolls. Seems like an easy way to do it to me. Medium encumbrance gives -2. To make the problem more severe, double the penalty. Logically, this penalty might only affect wizards who must make significant gestures, applying to those with a skill 14 or less, and perhaps this at that skill level right there, 14 or less, and perhaps doubling for anyone with a skill of 9 or less in that particular spell. But in many stories, even the most powerful wizards avoid armor, suggesting the penalty could be universal if it exists at all. I was also thinking about limitations, when you're trying to go ad hoc. I remember in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, like one of the problems with the stuff being built on was that wizards had to use both hands in order to cast spells. But I did play a blade singer for a little while. Grainin, he was a gray elf blade singer. And so he was dual class or multi-class, whatever the term was at that time, between fighter and wizard. That was a cool character to play. But there was a problem that way. How can you cast spells if he's got the armor and got the sword, and it was like, well, now he can cast spells with just one hand. The blade singers could. But does that make sense? How can the wizard, who specializes in magic singly, have to use both hands when somebody who is both a fighter and a wizard can be cast spells with just one hand? And I think they got around the armor situation there, that the blade singer had to have elven mail, and then you could cast spells in armor or something like that. Sort of an ad hoc solution to that problem, but cool character and cool character concept. Problems with metal. It's sometimes suggested that metal, especially iron, somehow disrupts magic, perhaps because of its ability to conduct energy. Thus, too much metal, armor, swords, iron chains, and manacles close to the caster's body prevents spell casting. To simulate this, estimate the total weight of metal within 6 inches of the caster's skin. Count a spearhead has 0.5 pounds, a polearm blade as 1, divide by 5, round the nearest whole number, and apply the result as a penalty to your casting rolls. That's probably something you should calculate in advance, right? So wait, hold on. What do we got to do here? We've got to estimate the total weight of metal within 6 inches of my skin, and then we will divide that by 5, round to the nearest whole number, and then apply that as a penalty to your casting rolls. That's pretty geeky, but I like it. A wizard with pocket change and belt buckles totaling 0.5 pounds and a large knife and a dagger in his boot, 0.25 pounds, has no penalty. But replacing that large knife with a 2-pound short sword would give him -1, and an 18-pound breastplate would give him -4 all by itself. At higher tech levels, firearms present similar problems. Of course, this leaves wizards free to wear heavy leathers and fight with staves and clubs, raises doubts about how wizards can enchant swords. Of course, this leaves them free. Raises doubts about how wizards can enchant swords, much less armor, and confronts the GM with practical problems of keeping track of quantities of metal in, say, building structures. Yeah, it does. I still think you could work with enchantment. That you can't be wearing it. We're talking about 6 inches away from your skin. So the sword could still be laying there to enchant, unless you're actually trying to forge it, and you have to forge it in order to enchant it. Without those problems, for a full set of fantasy game cliches, some spellcasters, notably clerics and members of particular races, can wear armor, while secular human wizards of the pointy hat and robe variety must avoid it. If problems with encumbrance or metal are the rule, then any exceptions the GM allows have an enchantment to Bagery and power investiture. Cast without encumbrance metal armor problems is worth plus 50%. So you'd be paying more for that if you can do it, if that comes up in your game. If the penalty is merely halved, that's plus 30%. If the standard penalty is twice encumbrance, these enchantments are plus 80 and plus 50% respectively. Yeah, that would be a huge advantage. If such problems are the exception, then they work better as limitations on magery or power investitures. If such problems are the exception, then do it in reverse. Makes sense. So let's see what everybody's saying. I think that's going to wrap us up right here. Oh, we got lots of comments here. Trey says, Savage Worlds does magic with a power like blast, and the flavor determines if it's fire, ice, etc., and what the spell effect, the environment only if the flavor comes in the narrative, setting fires. So let me read that again. Savage Worlds does magic with a power like blast, and the flavor determines if it's fire, ice, etc. Not a bad way to do it. And what the spell affects the environment only if the flavor comes in narratively, like setting fires. Wizards and armor, Innerlight says. I kind of thought the point of wizards not wearing armor was because if you're calling in a wizard, you're looking for a way to end a war, not make it go on longer. Well, that could be in the campaign setting. If you're the hero quest wizard, like you're definitely getting stuck in. You're going and looking for danger though. And definitely part of the adventuring environment. Trey says, edit to cipher comment. It's mental fatigue. Andrew says, that's a lot of math. It is. That comes up or can come up quite a bit in GURPS a lot, but it's all there. Like if you're thinking about what is this setting like? Why is this like this? All right, we got to calculate the amount of metal that's around 6 inches of your body. We're going to get to GURPS space one day. We're going to get to GURPS space. Rhino says, I do like how druids could not carry iron in 3rd edition. Restrictions are a fun dial to play with. I agree. Enchanting in metal fatigued wizardry. The wizard enchants the jewel, which is embedded in the sword armor. Oh, well, that would also be a great way to do it. Yeah, you could totally get away with around it like that. If you were having a problem with why can the wizard enchant a sword, but he can't carry it and cast magic? Yeah, enchant. It's like socketing things in Diablo. Could be more of a permanent socket, or it could be exchangeable like in Diablo. But yeah, I've got to enchant something that's there that's then used as part of and applied to the weapon. That would be a great way to do it. Cold iron has always had a negative effect on the fairy world. And elsewhere in this book, it does talk specifically about cold iron and what cold iron is or might be. We'll get to that when we get to other parts of this book, I suppose. Theo says, in GURPS, a wizard might be weak because they could not use the character points to buy more, because they could use those character points to just buy more spell skills. Exactly. Yeah. Well, I'm playing a wizard character, so I'm just going to reduce my strength, get those points back from them, and then use those points to buy a whole lot more spells and make it easy. Easy D6 has a freeform magic system. Really? Look up Easy D6 magic system. All right. Yep. Let's. Stray is saying, hey, everyone, have a very safe and fun Thanksgiving. I hope everybody does too. I have got to get out of here in just a moment, but we're going to end here like we always do. Just really quickly, though.
I manage my department, and I've been doing that for several years now.
Your department's just you, right?
Yes, Jim, but I am not easy to manage.
Let's think about what will make a great day for us if we get this done. These are our big rocks. I've been working on something else to actually post about the system, put that on YouTube. I think most everybody here is regulars, but we want to talk about big rocks. What are the big rocks that we need to do today in order to make it a great day? And this is a holiday, so not everything has to be incredible productivity. So number one for me is Thanksgiving lunch. You know, that's a big deal, right? I mean, if I go to lunch, got the pellet guns ready, going to try to have, clear, fantastic time with the family, hang out. That would make that a great day. That's a big one to me, and it's going to take up a lot of the day. So if that gets done, if Thanksgiving lunch gets done, make it count, make it, everything it's supposed to be with family or friends or whoever you are hanging out with. I would still love to schedule more YouTube. I've got videos that need to go out. Schedule more YouTube. I'm trying to write and talk. And so I've got one that's going to come out at 2:30 today. So one's already scheduled. So when I get back home, that would sure be nice. And then I have got to edit some videos for the morning grind here that I shot this morning. Who knows if I'll get to it. This is the big one, Thanksgiving lunch. I'm going to be gone. I got 4 hours worth of driving today, plus having lunch and hanging out. So I hope everybody has a fantastic day. I hope you've got a great place to go for Thanksgiving. If not, hey, you could hang out in the Discord or something like that. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. I see happy Thanksgiving in the chat. It was so great to talk to you. So great. I'm thankful for you guys. This has been great. This is incredible. I love it. So happy Thanksgiving. Everybody have a great day. I will see you tonight. I'll see you tonight for the wind down. Bye, y'all.